And I'll actually start from the things that are coming out soonest. Labour market, and we discussed that quirky unemployment number which came out last month.
So the unemployment number that came out last month was 3.7.
3.7% unemployment,
Back
down from 4.1.
4.1.
That never happens, sort of thing. And so what the Bureau of Statistics who calculate that unemployment number do, they said, look, we've got a sample rotation because it's a sample of the community. They might have just happened to have captured a lot of people in their sample who
That's
had
a monthly
job.
number, isn't it?
It's a monthly number.
Yep.
And next week, we get that update. So whether that 3.7 stays is very unlikely. The market consensus that I've seen has got it going back to 4%.
Right.
So ignore that number, but it's really important.
Yep.
If it stays low, that'd be a shock to everybody.
When is the next unemployment number coming out?
The next unemployment number comes out on Thursday, the 18th of April.
Right.
And you look at it.
And that's the March quarter?
It'll be the March monthly number.
March monthly.
And it'll be on abs.gov.au.
Right.
Australian Bureau of Statistics.gov.au. It'll be there slap bang in the middle after 11:30 a.m. Sydney time.
Right. So, and what we want our audience to be looking for?
Well,
if they're looking for a rate reduction,
the Reserve Bank want unemployment to go up.
4.5.
They're targeting 4.5 later this year or in 2025.
So the closer you get 4.5,
the happier in inverted commas the Reserve Bank will be, the nearer they are to be cutting rates.
Right. But on the flip side, if it's closer to 3.7,
we'll push back that rate
reduction.
Cut further.
Yep.
I don't think we're talking rate hikes in Australia, not like the US. No, we're not.
Right.
But all we're talking about is whether they get pushed back into the fourth quarter of this year or even into 2025, as some people are talking about.
So abs.com.au.
That's ABS, Bureau of Statistics.com.au, 18th of April.
And right now, though, you're still saying even adjusted is still in neutral.
Yeah, because I want to see that next number. And prior to that quirky number coming out, the unemployment rate had been going up.
Yep. Right.
Now, 24th of April is the March quarter consumer price index, the inflation rate. Same website, Bureau of Statistics. I'm putting that in neutral to tightening because as things stand, now we've had the monthly inflation numbers, which have been really encouraging, 3.4% in annual terms. But what happens with the March quarter, they've got a bigger sample of goods and services that they check. It's in the December quarter was 4.1. We probably want that to be about 3.5% on the 24th of April when it comes out.
What are the market expectations?
It's about 3.5. It's about 3.5 because that would actually mean that the quarterly run rate, I think we discussed this in our last podcast, you'll have a 0.6 in the December quarter, probably a 0.6 or 0.7 in the March quarter. Multiply that by
24.
2.4, 2.5, 2.5%. What's the RBA target?
Sweet spot.
2 to 3. So I'm putting that in neutral to tightening, but if we do get, I want it confirmed. If we get a 0.6 quarter on quarter, 3.5 annual, I'll slip that into neutral.
Just on that, just tell me, you may be closer to this than me. Petrol prices are pretty high at the moment. Were they higher for that part of March?
They jumped in the month of March, and certainly April they're higher. You know, here we are halfway through April roughly, and that world oil price shock kicked them high. We're now roughly $90 a barrel. 6 to 8 to 9 weeks ago, we're at $80 a barrel.
Right. So
and it's feeding through into petrol prices. So that will have only a marginal impact on the March quarter.
Right.
The bigger impact, if they stay where they are, will be the June quarter.
Right. Okay.
Now, we don't get the GDP numbers, the whole economy, the picture of the whole economy until early June. So we'll talk about that at our next one rather than this one. But the GDP numbers, I'll put that towards easing.
As it is currently.
As is to the December quarter.
Yep.
Because we get the March quarter numbers in June. Don't know what the Bureau of Statistics do. Can't get them out faster, I say. Anyway, I'm sure they do a good job. But we've had that fall in GDP growth from 0.6 to 0.5 to 0.3 to 0.2. So GDP is slowing.
Yep.
The interest rate hikes are working. If you wanted to be the pure economist and not be emotional about it and say, have the interest rate hikes worked? You say, yeah, look at GDP. Look at inflation's gone from 8 to 4%. It's working, so that's good news.
Just on GDP, we know what the American US is doing. You mentioned they've grown, and all the other places like Eurozone, China, and our mates New Zealand have come backwards. Does everybody use the same methodology to determine GDP? Pretty
much so, yes. The inflation data is different from country to country. They include different items and they have different weightings.
Yep.
They're different, but GDP is basically C plus I plus G plus X minus M, which is consumption plus investment plus government spending plus exports minus imports.
Right, so they're all using the expenditure
pretty
method.
much the same approach, yes.
Right, okay.
Yes.
So
whereas inflation's different. I must confess I haven't checked the weighting, but the US has a thing called, I don't want to be boring, owner's equivalent rent. So even if you own a house, and by definition you don't pay rent, they assume what would you pay for the rent in that house.
Right. So it's like an opportunity cost type
calculation.
Yeah,
it's very weird. Whereas we don't do that in Australia, which is probably a good thing. But we include tobacco, and I don't smoke, so I shouldn't include it. Well, it's the weighted average of what the average Australian does, and 10% of Australians smoke, so it's got a weighting within the consumer price basket.
Okay.
Wages data, we don't get to the middle of May, about the time of the budget, and wages I'm putting neutral to tightening. They've gone up to 4.2%, but like the inflation number, the last quarterly number was a bit weaker. We want to be sure about that labour market number to sort of put it into the neutral category. So in a sense, after the very, very weak wages for a decade, to be blunt, we've had a bit of a wages pickup. So that's why I don't think even the Reserve Bank's worried about wages growth yet. But we want to see the next one tilting just down a little bit from 4.2 back down to sort of 3.7, 3.8. That would be the Goldilocks wages growth. Not too hot, not too cold, just right.
And we haven't in the past, and I don't know which belongs in there somewhere, but we haven't talked about productivity.
Yeah.
It's a complicated one, but
it is.
I mean, but wages going up, but without a concurrent productivity going up.
Yep.
It's a problem.
That's the problem. If you get, you could have 5% wages growth, but if productivity is going at 2 or 3%, which is very strong, fine. If wages go up 3% and you've got zero productivity, that's bad.
Yeah, because the vendor or the manufacturer, let's call it, the producer has to charge more
to cover the wage cost.
To maintain their margin.
Correct. Wages are like any other cost. Your rent, your goods, your insurance, your cleaning, your whatever. Wages are a business cost.
But if all of a sudden
if my people are working doubly hard, I can afford to pay them. I can pay them. I can still make good money, and I don't have to put up my prices.
Because I'm selling more.
I'm selling more. They might be using a machine rather than just their hands. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. But productivity is a big issue.
It's a big issue. I think
the RBA is worried about it.
They are worried about it.
They keep talking about it.
And we need to see those productivity numbers. They're only included in the GDP numbers, so we only get a quarterly update on the productivity results. The last one was a little bit better, but again, we're not dancing in the streets celebrating productivity. We need to see, we need to see a year of improving productivity.
Well, we've had bad productivity for years now.
Yeah, I think we have, and I think it's because our labour market doesn't have the skill set. It was only, a year or two ago that we were still in some industries complaining about a skills shortage. The economy was doing okay and businesses couldn't find workers with the appropriate skills. That kills productivity. I've got a business plan. I need to expand. I need to employ skilled workers. Can't find them. That business plan gets thrown in the garbage bin.
And it also that whole conversation, by the way, productivity and or skills, dovetails into the whole question about immigration. Who should we be encouraging to come to Australia? Obviously skilled.
Yes, that's a hot topic, and without getting into the size of the immigration intake, which at the moment is big, too big in my view. With the immigration intake, you've got to ensure, and you can choose who you get, and we want people with a skill.
Well, construction skills. It's a big one.
We need people who can lay bricks.
I saw 90,000. We need 90,000. In order to build the number of houses we need to build, we need 90,000 new immigrants or 90,000 new skilled workers.
Yep, in the construction industry alone.
Construction alone.
Let alone healthcare, aged care. We've got an ageing population. We're spending more money on healthcare, aged care. We need people to look after us.
Totally.
Our old age mark. Not there yet, but one day. One day. No. International economy, we spent a bit of time on that. I'm putting that in neutral, even though rate cuts are still being priced in around the world. The economy is still generally weak. The US is the strong person at the moment, but everywhere else is weak. So I'm putting that in neutral. House prices, I'm putting that in neutral. And we haven't discussed them today, but that massive divergence. Perth's prices in Adelaide are up 15, 16, 17%. Melbourne's minus 2%. Hobart, Darwin, they're dead flat. Canberra, Sydney's now tapering off. It's only growing at sort of 4 or 5% now. A big divergence from city to city, but there does appear to be at last a bit of a cooling in the nationwide prices. Still going up nationwide,
but
not as
clip.
much as they were, say, 6 months ago. So I'm putting that in neutral. Retail sales, shocking. That's an easy one. Link to that, consumer sentiment. We consumers are feeling glum, cost of living, mortgage rates, rent. Oh God, So when we're feeling glum, we don't spend. So that's an easy one. Building approvals.
No good.
Shocking, mate. We need to build 250,000 dwellings per year to keep up with population. The latest building approvals in an annualised figure was 150,000.
Yeah,
100,000 dwellings. Think about that. 100,000 dwellings short of what we need, and it's falling still. We need, I'm really worried about that. So this housing shortage that's impacting on rents and impacting on prices is going to be around for a long time. Business investment is good. Funnily enough, businesses are still investing in CapEx, IT, artificial intelligence, all those sort of things. So the NAB survey of business confidence, which came out about a week ago, was decent. It wasn't weak, it certainly wasn't strong, but it was okay. So I'm putting that in the neutral comment.
Well, I think
column. I'll put the business confidence there too.
I think people investing in businesses because they're trying to get their costs down. I'd rather spend capital trying to digitize my business because I might have less. I might be able to have less employees. That's
exactly the issue. So it is using machinery, equipment, artificial intelligence to do the job that a human 10, 20 years ago used to do.
And they don't have to pay wages anymore. And annual leave.
By the way, that's good for productivity when it comes off.
Yep.
So we in a year's time, we might be pleasantly surprised with productivity because of this business investment. We'll see. But
I hope you and I can smile at each other in a year's time about exactly
productivity's gone up, rates have come down, and commodities. I'm putting that into the slightly tightening. Last time I put it neutral, I'm putting it back this way a bit. We mentioned the oil price going from 80 to $90 a barrel in the last month. That is inflationary, but it's not just them. I love looking at the commodity price numbers. Copper, lumber, steel prices, all these things that go into manufacturing have gone up. Food prices, wheat and these sort of things gone up. Oil, canola oil and all this sort of stuff. Believe it or not, they're an important part of the inflation basket, and they've all gone up. So I'm not putting it into tightening, but I'm just moving it back this way a little bit. Stock market, putting that in neutral. It's fickle. We had the inflation numbers in the US. Stock market went down, and, so it's all leveraged to that. And current interest rates, I'm putting that towards the easing side. They are restrictive. We don't need more rate hikes. The question has got to be these top really important indicators: GDP, inflation, labour market and wages, international economy. They've got to move a bit more towards the easing cycle before we push that final button
Last time
across.
we met, we had more in neutral and more in the easing. So
we did.
There's been a little bit of a shift to the left.
The things that have shifted are inflation, wages and commodities.
Yeah.
We've had new information. What do you do when you get new information? You change your mind.
Yes.
I think they're the same. I think many of these are the same. But the biggies was the inflation stuff out of the US. That was big news.
Yep.
The bond market really didn't react well. The stock market didn't react well. Wages 4.2 and the commodity price side.